We are yet to hear Newcastle's angle on this, but Clinton Morrison, wow, what do you make of it?
Yeah, well, he's basically saying that he was promised that he could probably leave, and things change though. That happens at a football club. Newcastle, within their right, they can agree with it to say we'll let you go, but then they're playing Champions League football and they want to keep their best players. They don't want to sell their best players. I understand his frustration saying he wants to go to a club like Liverpool who are going to be challenging and winning trophies again. But at the end of the day, I think the way he's gone about it is all wrong. And I'll name two players that will probably get moves that have gone about it the right way, and Mark Gay and Eze. They don't speak, they just get on with it and play their football. That's what he probably should have done, got on with it, because eventually the move would have happened to Liverpool. But he has been promised that he would get that move, and it probably ain't happened at the moment.
That's what he says, anyway.
Yeah, that's what he's saying, but I wait to hear from Newcastle.
Contractual.
That's what I'm trying to say, it's not contractual.
He's got 3 years left on his contract.
Yeah, exactly. So Newcastle in their right can say, we're not even going to sell you. But what's the point of keeping a player that's unhappy? He might down tools.
Well, I think that's the thing that smacks to me, Jules. It's desperation now, isn't it? I think it's almost like it's been a game of high-stakes poker, you know, who's going to blink first. Everyone's raising the stakes as it goes on, and it just got to this point where, if we're using that as an analogy, he's gone all in, hasn't he? Like, you know, he's like, what can I do to force this through? Clearly, Liverpool don't want to pay what Newcastle want. And him saying that once the promises were broken, the trust is broken, it's best for him to move on. I can't see any way back from this. I genuinely thought it was getting to the point of maybe they'll come back round, but the fact it's come from him, I think that's it. It has to get done now, I really do.
Courtney, does this statement force Newcastle's hand? Do they have to sell him now?
It does to a degree, and it's hard because then I'm looking at that thinking, one, what the lads have said is spot on. We've all been promised stuff in our career. It doesn't happen. But when you're 25 years of age and you're an international and you're playing in the Premier League, you probably should know better. So I'm asking who's advising him to say what he's saying and do what he's doing and think that actually a promise is OK, because as Clinton says, things in football change. And it's that question of how does it look to everyone else? How do Liverpool see this? Do they now, does it break down potentially because they're looking at a player thinking, actually, if he's going to kick off like this, what's he going to do here? Like I say, you've seen it, the sides of it where Wissa, Isak, very similar, whereas Gahey and Eze, they're probably getting on with it. But equally, I get it because I've been within football, I've been promised things and you're frustrated when it doesn't happen. But I think there's probably an element as well as a bit of naivety within this story as well.
£110 million plus add-ons was the bid rejected by Newcastle. Less than 2 weeks left. Tommy Smith in the window. How do you see this resolving?
Well, I don't see any way back at Newcastle now. I really don't. I think that's a really strong statement that he's put out there. Almost enough to say, like, I'm done now with the club. I think it's there. It's in writing. What Newcastle do is one of them. What do you do? What can you do? If you've got a player there who's clearly a top player, he doesn't want to play at the football club anymore. I mean, how much are the fans going to want him at the football club? You know, because one thing that Newcastle fans are is they're, you know, they're very supportive of the team. They're very passionate about the team, and if they've got players in the team who don't want to be there, they're going to want rid.
The precedent it sets, though, isn't it, going forward as a player and just thinking, right, if you kick off and refuse to play, you win the game. That's something that's maybe got to be looked at.
Well, what happens next? We will find out. Watch this space. When promises are broken and trust is lost, the relationship can't continue, says Alexander Isak tonight.
Who knows what reason? It was the PFA Awards today. Mo Salah won the player...
Who knows what reason it was the awards today, or who knows what reason we're putting the graphic in?
Well, we put it in because it's a segue then to what Isak had to say. So this is the team of the year. We will not discuss it. But Isak, in thanking everyone for being part of the team, came out and said this: the reality is that promises were made and the club has known my position for a long time. To now act as if their issues are only emerging is misleading. When promises are broken and trust is lost, a relationship can't continue. That's where things are for me right now, and why change is in the best interest of everyone, not just myself. Don Hutchison, of course, the perfect guest to have on with his Newcastle ways, former pro ways as well, Don.
Well, he is a man that knows how to make a transfer, because
he hit 17.
He made enough of them.
OK, so reading between the lines is suggesting that Isak had been told by the club, if a big team comes in, we'll let you go. And obviously that has now happened, and they haven't. Is that fair?
I think that's fair, but I think the journalists up at Newcastle are more or less saying we've not heard from Newcastle, and they strongly deny what Alexander Isak's saying. So I would imagine what Alexander Isak's saying is correct, because I've been in that situation myself. There was loads of context in my story, but the worst thing he's done is refuse to play and train. There's a way to leave a football club. I mean, it seems like to me, because he's been so quiet now for the last couple of weeks, his agent's probably said to him tonight, listen, you're going to have to say something because this move, what's it left, 12 days of the window? You're going to have to say something now to try and force the move, try and engineer Newcastle accepting a lower bid from Liverpool, because they lowballed Newcastle for 110 million. That was never going to be the offer that Newcastle would accept. So Liverpool have been pretty naughty, I think, in this as well, expected to try and get him for 110 when they know they could go a lot higher, or going to have to walk away. So put your money up or shut up. But on Alexander Isak, as I said, Dan, just train, just play. I mean, you know, he sent out a message tonight saying promises were broken. Well, what about all the Newcastle fans that bought all the Alexander Isak shirts and spent all the money going down to Aston Villa at the weekend and he wasn't there? And they turned out in their droves and they loved him and he loved them. It's getting to a point now where he's desperate because, as I said, he's got no cards left to play. So his agent probably said to him, you're going to have to say something, otherwise this deal might collapse.
Those shots are all blunt now, aren't they? I mean, I can't go on with this show, Don, until I find out what you combed your hair with today. You're looking a bit windswept.
I just had a quick shower. Just had a quick shower.
Yours isn't the best today, anyway, to be fair.
Nothing too drastic.
Mine's not the best.
No, it's quite.
Mine's becoming a bit of a problem.
Only now?
I must admit.
See, Dan, very quickly, I had this scenario. I've just answered a few tweets, so I'll tell you very quickly because it's a long-winded story. But a Sunderland fan got in touch tonight and said, you've done exactly the same when you left Sunderland to go to West Ham. And in a way, he's sort of right, but there was context to the story. So my context to my story was, before I signed for Sunderland, which I was always going to do, I went to see Gordon Strachan at Coventry, and he was going to make me highest paid player, captain's armband. Alan Kirbishley said the same thing down at Charlton. Went to spoke to Brian Robson and Keith Lambert at Middlesbrough, but I always wanted to sign for Sunderland. Now, a lad from Newcastle who didn't earn a lot of money in his career, I lost £2 million to sign for Sunderland Football Club because I wanted to play for Sunderland and I wanted to go back home and I wanted to see my mum and dad. My mum wasn't particularly too well and I wanted to live in Durham, so I was quite happy giving up the money. But I done what Alexander Isak's probably done as well, is I shook the hands of Bob Murray, who was the chairman and the chief executive, and I said, in the first year, if I do well, can we look at my contract? I had the best season of my life. So I went back in, they flat refused, said no, we're not going to do it, Then Rangers and West Ham came in and I moved. So it's a little bit similar, but I played the first game of the Premier League down at Fulham. I never refused to train, I never refused to play. I didn't keep quiet, I just let my agent and everyone get on with it, and I wanted to stay, but things had moved south where I had to sort of move in the end, but there's context to it. What I don't get is, why is he not training? Why is he not helping his teammates? It's a poor look. It's a sour look. It's a desperate move from him.
He said, before we came on air, Dan said you'd make that about yourself.
No, it's just because I think the Sunderland fans asked the question and I had to answer it because it was too long-winded to try and give them an explanation. So things like that do happen. I see Stan Collymore tonight. He's getting a bit of abuse as well because when he moved from Forest to Liverpool, they're saying he engineered a move. You've probably been in the same boat as well, Craig. It happens, but I dare say you've never refused to train or play.
Well, everybody gets abused by you. There's no point in getting involved with these people. The story here is Alexander Isak. Look, maybe the answer, because clubs make promises, and as I said in the graph, promises can be broken and people change their minds. It's a business. Maybe his advisors could have did a better job with a release clause, which is sort of black and white. Because sometimes clubs change their position. Maybe Newcastle did make listen, I don't know. I'll take him at his word. That's fine. But maybe they can't. Maybe the promise was, we'll let you go if a club comes in, but we need to have a plan B, and maybe they don't have the plan B that they wanted. Sesko has gone to Man United. Yeah. So that changes the narrative of, sometimes clubs will come along and say to you, look, I know we said, but we need another 6 months or a year because our alternative is not available. And a lot of players, will agree to that, but clearly, and Don mentioned it, that what this player has done has just taken himself out of the equation. And he's made himself look very, very unprofessional. And I don't think that is helping the scenario. Certainly not amongst the fans. If he's got to go back and play and this deal does not come off, he's going to get an absolute shellacking, home and away.
Till he scores a hat-trick.
Well, yeah, I don't know if you'll ever. I don't know from this scenario if you ever.
So, yeah, that's obviously my next question: is has this statement now burnt all the bridges? Do you think so? He'll never play for Newcastle
I
again?
don't think there was much left of the bridge.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if he doesn't make this move to Liverpool, and the transfer window closes, they will have to play him.
But it's him. Does he have to play?
He has to play.
Will he choose to?
Contractually, he can't do that.
Has to.
He has to. I mean, we're now getting into a very legal minefield. Because
Yeah, but we've seen players in the past not play, haven't we? And force.
you can choose not to play, but you're breaking your contract. Then the club, technically, I believe, don't have to pay you. They're not going to let him go. They're not going to sack him for an egregious offence like that because of the value of the player. So he's an asset for them. Whether we get to that scenario, I mean, one story, and this is back in the day, Pierre Van Hooijdonk, if you remember, back in the late 90s, went on strike at Nottingham Forest and basically just disappeared. But it was only for a shortish piece, amount of time, I can't remember off the top of my head. But I think he came back and played or whatever it was. So it has happened, it just doesn't happen very often, and I don't think it will from this player. I just feel now we're at that stage where...
Van Dijk?
Did he do it?
Southampton? Forced that move, didn't he? And it worked out for him.
And I don't like when this happens, but I think we're at the stage now where the relationship between player, club, manager, supporters has become so poisonous that the best thing to do here for Newcastle is get as much money as they can and move the player on. Now that's the player getting what he wants, and I understand that. But this is a very difficult situation that you do see. I mean, Gyökeres, got his move to Arsenal, and in some sense he forced it, didn't he, from Sporting Lisbon. But you saw some of the quotes from the Sporting Lisbon owner. It was almost like he was going to dig his heels in because of it. In the end, he didn't, and they got what they wanted. So I don't know. It's a very, very ugly situation.
What do you think, Dom? Will we see Isak ever play for Newcastle again?
I still think there's hope. I think Craig's right. They have to sell him. They've got to try and get as much money as they can. But what if Liverpool turn around and say 120 is our final offer? What do Newcastle do then? Because they value him at 140, 150. So essentially they're going to have to come up and do something and probably take a hit on the 140. They probably won't sort of reach that number. But I think what Alexander Isak's claiming from a few journalists that I've spoke to is the former owner and then Amanda Staveley, when they were at the football club, they promised Alexander Isak a new contract when they were there, which was, I think, just under a year ago. So he's been adamant he was getting a new contract. Then the owner moves on, Amanda Staveley moves on, there's no sporting director, so he then can't sort of say to anyone, listen guys, you promised me this new contract, but the owner, Amanda Staveley's not there anymore. This is what I'm hearing from the journalists, this is where his angst comes from. But there has to be a solution. And I think Liverpool need to do more to try and find a number that Newcastle will accept. Because at the end of the day, Newcastle, I feel sorry for Eddie Howe in this. I said this a couple of days back. He's the one that's trying to prepare his team for a tough away trip against Villa. Now they got a point. But this can't carry on. Otherwise, you're just going to have to keep finding him for breach of contract every couple of weeks. And it could be a Van Hooijdonk situation where he might be away for 2 or 3 months. Now, that surely can't happen. So 12 days left of the window. All my senses say he will move to Liverpool, but if Newcastle don't get the 2 centre-forwards that they want and Liverpool don't pay the money, then he will stay.
I mean, Eddie Howe's getting screwed, you're right, but that's where sometimes I think you're better just to do this business earlier in the season, even if the money isn't quite at the limit that you want. Yeah. Because now you might get the extra 10 million or 20 million that you want for the player, but as a football club, as a manager and as a squad, what kind of position does that leave you in with the season already started?
I suppose they were thinking, right, if we can bring in Ekitike, if we bring in Sesko, at least then we've got a platform to build on. That hasn't happened. They delayed the Isak deal, and now we're at this stage.
And it's, I feel like we've talked about him a lot, Alexander Isak. And look, he may or may not get his move to Liverpool, but I can tell you now, we all do things during a career. You think, man, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And this is going to be certainly one of those moments for him because he's had, and when you leave a club, sometimes you leave in good terms and bad terms, but usually it's, you've played well or you've played badly and the fans sort of accept it. You do feel here's a player who has performed really well for Newcastle, who is has been a class act on the field, but yet, you know, the way that he is treating this scenario, when he leaves, and it looks like he will, he's leaving with such a bad taste in everybody's mouth. And it's all, most
I'll tell you the one thing I would do, Craig.
Yeah.
Craig, I tell you the one thing I would do, having seen everything that's happened over the last 14 days, if I was Isak, I'd sack my agent. His agent's been horrendous in this. His agent has just sat back. He's thinking about the money to Liverpool, the move to Liverpool. He's offered his player the worst advice ever. If he's told his player, because he would have done, he'd have said to his player, don't train, don't play, force Newcastle's hand. I would seriously sack my agent off the back of this.
Here's the deal now. When players were getting paid less money, and the game has changed, I understand. When players were getting paid less money, you did not have the luxury of potentially losing a month, 2 months, or 3 months' wages if you go on strike or you refuse to play. The trouble is now, these players, the majority of them have accumulated such small fortunes that, and they're getting paid astronomical amounts of money, that they can almost hold the club to ransom. As the club say, well, we're going to fine you a month's wages, we're going to fine you 2 months and 3 months until you play or train. And a lot of players now can just sit back and absorb that.